welcome to Panther Tales. I'm Kim Amidzich, Superintendent of Greendale Schools. Reading is one of the most important skills that children learn in our school system. Last month, we shared with you how our students learn how to read and decode. This month, we're going to be sharing with you what happens with those reading skills as they evolve and become upper elementary school students. We will visit the classroom of Leah Weichlet and Monique Hoth as they are working on teaching reading in the classroom. And they will share with you how their students are meeting the standards and rising to expectations to become amazing readers.
I'm Leah Weichlet. I teach 5th grade at College Park. Throughout the year, we do a lot of work around reading goals. So right now, students have a bookmark where they have their reading goal right in their book that every teacher that walks into the classroom knows. So they can say, show me your reading goal, and it's right on their bookmark for them. And they set those reading goals themselves with the support of a teacher. I think with them kind of driving and setting the goal with their teacher, it kind of gives them that ownership that they follow through with their goal versus me just telling them this is your goal, but having them being a partner in that work gives them that sense of accomplishment with that. With the learning progression, something that we do in our collaboration meetings is we kind of align those skills to the standards. So which skills are hitting which standards. And then it really breaks it down that at this level, in this skill of, let's say, analyzing how characters change. At a 2nd grade level, here's what that looks like. At a 3rd grade level, here's what that looks like, and so forth. And so as 5th graders, they can really look at that progression, and we do a lot of modeling. So there's lessons that will put a skill or standard up on the board and have all kids kind of break down each level and have kids rate where their sticky note is, and then push up a level for that. Or at the end of a unit, instead of just taking an assessment, stapling it and sending it home to parents, we do a lot of analyzing of our own work. And those are honestly some of my favorite lessons, and the kids' favorite lessons is they'll take their pre-assessment, they'll look at their answers, and they'll compare it to their post-assessment, and using that rubric, and they have conversations around, here's where I really grew in the standards, here's what I'm doing now that I wasn't doing, and then here's work that I can continue to work on, and that often drives like reading goals around areas that they still need to grow in. That concrete example for them to have the learning professions in their hands, especially at upper level, that really helps them to be motivated because they'll see, here's where I'm at, this is where I want to get to, and then with the support of teachers, they can figure out how do I get to where I need to go.
My name is Monique Hoth. I work at College Park. I have a dual role as a reading interventionist and a special education teacher. Everybody comes to the carpet for our lessons. We want them all to be engaged and be able to access the lessons the very first time. So when I think of our collaborative team, because there's such vast knowledge sitting around the table, and because we meet before the units start, we're able to make sure every student has access into the curriculum. So that might be varying levels of text. It might mean sentence stems that we use to help them write about their reading. It also means that every adult in the room has a purpose in working with certain kids and all kids. As far as what you'll see the kids doing, that allows the kids to be engaged. They're engaged at the carpet, they're engaged when they're working in partnerships, and they're engaged when they're working with individual teachers. And again, knowing what that goal is or those standards that they're working towards. Because the kids come to us with this large range, we do a various number of things. One is we do assessments, and a group of teachers, classroom teachers, special education, English support, language teachers, we all come together and we look at assessments and we decide according to the standards who is meeting grade level standards, who needs to be pushed beyond grade level, and who needs to kind of fill that gap and catch up to their peers, which are the grade level standards. And what's great about the one summative or formative assessments that we're using is one data point, one moment in time. But then we'll move forward and start doing some teaching. We will group kids according to a skill, and that might be one group that they're in for several weeks. And we'll see and we'll assess and interview the kids to see, are they getting it, are they not? And then we'll meet as a team and we might regroup kids. Sometimes you'll walk into a classroom and see a small group of kids all working on the same book because there's a certain skill or standard that these kids need to work on. Then you might walk into a classroom and see a small group of kids all reading different books, but we're stretching them to a 6th grade standard or to the grade level above, and the students can use their own books to reach those goals. Many times you'll see mixed group of students, and one might wonder why are those groups together, but because kids learn so well from one another that we can have students teaching each other through conversation and discussion, while the teachers who are running those groups are monitoring whether or not they're stretching themselves to reach that next goal or standard that we're expecting them to reach.
The primary levels, it's really about identifying who the characters are, but as it progresses, they move into what is the character feeling, like around a 2nd grade level, and then really starting to name traits. So moving from that feeling to naming traits. So instead of my character's feeling sad, to my character is kind, is thoughtful, is sneaky. And then as they start to get into 4th grade, it's really starting to look at how is that character complicated? How might they be more than one way? In our lower level books, in the primary levels, the characters are going to be kind of flat and stagnant, but as they get into higher level books, our characters start to become more complicated, so the work they have to do around that character becomes more complicated. And then once they start to get into 5th grade, it's really about developing theories about our characters. So now really taking those traits and those things that we learn, how they might be complicated, looking at like what motivates the character to act a certain way, or how does the character change, or comparing characters to each other, to different books, and kind of taking it a step further.
Students who've been with us from kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, all the way through 5th grade, they have the same terminology, but yet they're expected to analyze using that same terminology in books that are far more difficult than they did in 3rd grade. So today's character work is more like what they did in 4th grade, but our next step is now that they have to compare and analyze between characters and between text, which is how that would be different. So that's something cool about our curriculum too.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Panther Tales, and I hope you'll come back next month when we will share career pathways to viable careers and how our students have access to options for their future.